Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker podcast. We are back after a short break. As you can probably tell by the timbre of my voice, I have been sick. I'll try and keep this intro short because there's just such a huge amount to go through in this show. But with announcements from both Raspberry Pi and Arduino about their connectivity, I suppose is a good way of putting it, because Raspberry Pi functionally have made their own VNC. Arduino have now functionally made your Google Smart Home work with any Arduino project that works with the Arduino Cloud, really breaking down the barrier of entry for people wanting to make DIY smart home designs. We'll be talking about both of those things. We'll also be talking about new RISC V development boards, Microchip's Design Week, which was very interesting, and a truly tiny, low-cost FPV drone that someone made with an Arduino. That and a bunch of other stuff means I think we should probably get started with the show, but before we do, as always, I just want to mention that we have a shop at electromaker.io/shop. It is the best way to support this show by far, and if you have a podcast app that allows you to give star ratings and things like that, if you could give us a nice rating and say how much you enjoy the podcast, that always is a nice thing too. But anyway, none of that is mandatory, of course. I'm always very glad that so many people tune in, and if you'd like to find out more about any of the sections here, they are linked in the show notes, and of course you can watch it as a YouTube show on our YouTube channel too. Anyway, let's get on with the show. We're going to move on to Arduino and some quite interesting news, because the Arduino Cloud is now going to be compatible with Google Home, which means that if you have a Google Nest Hub or anything like that, you can incorporate it directly into your Arduino Cloud projects with native integration. But the wonderful thing about it as well is that if you are a maker who is working on an Android phone, or you have an old Android phone or tablet kicking around, you can use that as a way of adding voice control and all the automations that come with Google Home to your Arduino project. Now, at the time of filming this news has not been announced. It is under embargo, so I have just the details that Arduino have sent to us before release. But there's this rather nice image. There's a couple of other images as well, but unfortunately the resolution is slightly too small to show on video. But let's take a moment to take a look at the press release. So the press release is here, and by the time you see this, there will be a blog post on the Arduino site as well that I will link to as soon as that becomes available. You'll find that in the video description. But essentially what this is saying is that they've set up the Google Home integration in a very simple but quite powerful way, because each variable that you use in your Arduino project will show up as a device in your Google Home. So let's say you have one board that is connected to various things. You can use each one of those things individually via Google Home without having to do any heavy lifting on the programming side of things. So this press release, and again, I'm going to really skip through it because by the time you see this, you'll be able to see Arduino's official tutorial about it. I would be showing you that now if it was available, but essentially you create a new thing, and then you define your variables, making sure you choose from the smart home compatible ones, and then you link that to your Google Home using the steps that they tell you, and then inside the Google app, each one of those variable names will show up as a new device. And you can do this with any Google Home compatible speaker or mobile home. Hey folks, this is future editing Ian here. An interesting thing happened in this week's show in that the embargoed news about Arduino obviously had to take precedence over the story that was going to go in its place, which funnily enough was a story about the Arduino Cloud. But I've just realized that these two things are very interlinked, and I'm going to very briefly explain why. One of the things we were going to talk about in this week's show was the fact that you can use the Arduino Cloud with a Raspberry Pi now, which means there's two articles on the Arduino blog. One is how to visualize data from the Pi, and this is a little walkthrough in the blog, which mostly points to this video down here, which is a great introduction. It takes you through all the steps of how to set this up in the cloud. And the second part of this blog post is telling you how to do exactly the same thing, but to control an LED from the Arduino Cloud on a Raspberry Pi via its GPIOs. And you may realize where this is going here. If you've looked at images like this one, where are we looking for? This one, for example, this is all of the different variable names for the Raspberry Pi. And as you have already seen or are about to see in this particular show section, each one of those variables can be forwarded to the Google Home app as a device, which means that this Google Home integration into the Arduino Cloud applies to anything that works with the Arduino Cloud. It seems, I haven't actually tried this yet, I'm in the middle of editing the show, but I wanted to add this just because it did seem like an interesting thing to add. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, but it's just an interesting thing to me that one story that we dropped out of the show to cover the latest story is so intertwined, but after all, it is all Arduino Cloud after all. One too many after alls, isn't it, Ian? Now, there's a few things that are already supported by this integration. It says here, the supported Google Home sensors are temperature and motion detection, and the supported actionable accessories are light, dimmable light, colored light, smart plug, and smart switch. However, that covers a wide range of pretty much anything, and at the end of the day, what you're doing here is you're talking to Google, and then Google is talking to your Arduino. What you do at the Arduino end is entirely up to you. So yeah, this is a nice, exciting addition to the Arduino Cloud. I'll be very excited to hear what you think about it in the description. I know a lot of people are very much into building their own smart home things from the ground up, or buying into different kind of automation systems. I know Home Assistant is very popular as well. However, this is a wonderful combination of something that can be incorporated into a smart home and is very DIY and fits with the Arduino ethos of everything being easy and easy to follow, and of course, well documented. But what do you think? Now I'm going to touch briefly on Raspberry Pi Connect, which is their take on a VNC. Now, if you've ever had a Pi which is headless and you need to use the desktop of that Pi but didn't want to attach a mouse and keyboard and a monitor again, you could use a piece of VNC software like Real VNC, for example, which allows you to see that desktop remotely from another computer. It's very similar to the remote desktop app for Windows computers as well, and Raspberry Pi have put out their own, but with a few key differences. Now, I'm going to go very cliff notes on this because, firstly, you can just read the Raspberry Pi blog about it. Also, Jeff Geerling has put out a wonderful video which covers a lot of the things that I immediately thought about it, and he covers it very, very well. But if I was going to give a very quick sort of, I'm going to try and keep it to 1 minute cliff notes about it, this is the idea of a VNC, but simplified to the point that everybody can use it, and most people would find utility out of it. It doesn't mean that you can completely abandon your own old VNC software because there's a few things missing from it, but in short, you can connect to a Raspberry Pi from any browser, and this will work with the modern versions of the Raspberry Pi. They recently changed from Wayland, from X11 to Wayland as the window manager, and this is the way of that broke a lot of old VNC stuff. That's a topic for another day. This will work right out of the box, and it's Raspberry Pi we're talking about here. Their key takeaway from this is we want you to do this, and we want it to be simple. As it says here, we want it to be able to provide you with the functionality with our usual it just works approach. Enter Raspberry Pi Connect. So, if you're looking for an easy way to see your Pi's desktop from anywhere, then this is going to be a wonderful thing for you. There are a number of questions that may have cropped up to your mind. They cropped up in my mind as well. Things like security. How secure is this connection going to be compared to other VNC protocols? What about things like multiple monitor support? Is this thing going to suddenly start costing money? It's free now that it's in beta, but the future of all Raspberry Pi products has been somewhat put and kind of, it's hard to trust a company that once it goes public because the shareholders want money, and the only way you can do that is by monetizing things. And so that's a bit of a question mark here too. And the only reason I'm being so vague with this is that these are the initial thoughts that I had, and pretty much as always, whenever I see something about Raspberry Pi and have a couple of questions about it, Jeff Geerling answers it perfectly. So I will link his video in the description as well. In just under 8 minutes, he goes through everything about what this is and the questions that you may have about it. I believe he even has a section that specifically mentions the Raspberry Pi IPO, to see, will it be monetized? Yeah, there we go. Jeff really answers the questions that I tend to have about Raspberry Pi stuff before I have the chance to really put my words together and get a show out about them. But in my defense, I didn't really have a voice last week. Now, if you want to get started with this, you can get started with it right now. It's in beta, and the blog post has all of the things you need to install it on your computer. And the main takeaway from this is that this will probably replace a lot of VNC stuff for a lot of people down to its simplicity. But whether it will be perfect for your use case is something you'll have to do a little bit of digging in order to find out. This is your weekly quick reminder that if you would like to support this show, you can do all of the YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe, turn on notifications, other things YouTubers say. But you can also support us by going to the Electromaker shop, electromaker.io/shop. We sell a massive variety of stuff. A lot of the stuff you've seen on this show you can get. I mean, some of the winners of the Electromaker of the Month contest use the ESP32S2, for example. We have those dev boards in stock. Looking for a Raspberry Pi 5, we've got a lot of them. If you want a RISC V development board, we have those as well, including the full range of things from Nordic and everything from Adafruit, Sparkfun, a bunch of other suppliers as well. If you'd like to support us financially and directly, that is absolutely the best way to do so. But anyway, let's get on with the show. It is time to look at the winning project for Electromaker of the Month for April 2024. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Koitech for sponsoring this section. We are able to give cash prizes to people who put free projects up on our free project hub just because Koitech have sponsored it. And of course, they have added to the swag pile because everyone that wins a cash prize also wins a tidy pile of swag, including Electromaker t-shirts, stickers, Koitech bags, all kinds of lovely stuff. But anyway, let's get into the prize winners. Now, as always, you can find the blog that ties all of these together on the Electromaker blog. I'll be linking that in the description of the video, but each one of these also links out to the original project as well. And in first place this month is the Octo Clock and Old School Energy Meter, a fantastic project from Electromaker user A. Shakespeare. Now, the premise of this project is simple. Some electricity providers give you a variable tariff, which means that if you use electricity at the right time of day, you may end up paying less overall for using the same amount. And that's what this project does. This is actually two things in one. It's this rather charming old school looking clock, which is showing the current amount they're paying per kilowatt hour and the average they've been paying over, I think, a 24-hour period. And there's also this lovely looking fuel gauge, which does much the same thing. And they look lovely and old school, but there's some very new technology in this. It's using the ESP32S2, which is an MCU that's a few years old, but the idea here is that they're grabbing things from an API which will tell them everything they need to know in order to make decisions about their electricity usage. To find out more, you can head to the project page. There's a description of everything you need to know, including a link to the GitHub for the code that was used in this particular instance, although of course you will need to change that heavily depending on your use case. But it's just such a wonderful idea and it's been put together wonderfully. So congratulations, A. Shakespeare. You win our first prize this month, which is $150 in cash and a big pile of swag from both Electromaker and Koitech, who are sponsoring the competition. In second place, we have Micro Label from Open Muscle, which is something that I'm going to skip over quite shortly today because it's I would like to do a much longer section on this. I absolutely understand why our judges were impressed with this, but it's not something that I can fit into a small section like this because frankly this project is wonderful. Micro Label is one part of a project that is gathering data about how the human hand works in great detail. So let's start with this image of the thing itself. As you can see, it fits into your hand, and it looks a little bit like those finger exercise maneuver things. I used to have one years ago when I was playing lots and lots of guitar, but the idea is that each one of the sensors on there is taking very precise measurements of what is going on with the hand so that they can use that data to train a neural network in order to predict how different movements will happen in the future. Now, this by itself is great, but what it's paired with makes it super interesting. See, there's two other projects that fit with it. This is also from Open Muscle, but this is designed to fit around the forearm to see exactly what's going on with the muscles and tendons in your arm when you are moving your fingers. And there's another one that does something very similar. This is the Micromyo, which is a wearable EMG sensor. So you can get the picture now. If you're using all of these three things in tandem, you can get very fine-grained detail as to what is going on in the arm when you do certain movements. Very useful later if you remove one of those things, say in the case of getting proper movement for people with prosthetics. If you have training data that incorporates all elements of this, you can use that training data to train a model to create the movements in positions where maybe they aren't available, say in the position of someone who has a prosthetic hand on it and wants to get real movement out of it that feels a lot closer to the kind of movement that the data collected would have been. Now, I tried to keep that as brief as possible. I still talk for a little longer than I wanted to. We're going to come back and go through this project in fine-grained detail at some point soon, because I have a real penchant for projects that are really bridging that gap between what you can do with relatively cheap hardware sensors at this point and the completely open nature of being able to train models and do edge AI in a way which has a reduced set of complexity compared to how it used to. But for now, our judges were super impressed with this project for obvious reasons. Congratulations, Open Muscle. You have won our second prize this month, which is $100 in cash, and of course the big pile of Koitech and Electromaker swag I mentioned before. Oh, and everyone wins the Electromaker of the Month certificate. Let's not forget that. It's absolutely the most important part. And yeah, I hope that that $100 goes towards this project and helps it continue. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. In third place, and needing very little introduction, is the tiny gaming mouse. It is exactly what it says on the tin. This is a custom PCB which incorporates the same sensor found in full-size gaming mice, namely the Pixart PMW3389. It is paired with an ATmega32U4, which, let's say it together, is the same one you find in the Arduino Leonardo and Micro, namely a very useful MCU if you want to create USB HID devices, which of course mice and keyboards and all of that kind of stuff are, and they have produced a very cute and very tiny mouse. The write-up will tell you how you can come up with something yourself, and the PCB design is also available. Congratulations, this is a wonderful project. Science Shack, you win our third prize, which is $50, and of course the assorted pile of Electromaker swag and Koitech swag, and the coveted Electromaker certificate. And if you're watching this and wondering how these people ended up winning these prizes, they simply put it on our project hub. The Electromaker project hub is a place where you can upload your projects for free. You just need need a free Electromaker account in order to upload to them. You can even import your project from other websites if you've posted them somewhere elsewhere and you don't want to go through all of that again. And we have such a wonderful community of people putting a variety of projects up here. And I like to impress upon everyone every month that yes, some high complexity projects do win Electromaker of the Month at times, but what we're really looking for here is the documentation of your project, the passion behind your project. If you are learning Arduino for the first time and you document your steps through and it shows exactly what you're doing, that's going to impress the judges just as well. One of the wonderful things that I get to do is talk about things without having to worry about this kind of stuff. I would hate if I had to judge this because I would feel so bad. But that's why you have panels of independent judges. So yes, if you would like to find out more, you can head to the link underneath. That will link to our Electromaker of the Month blog article for this month. And you can find the catch-all page as well, which tells you exactly what the project is too, if you would like to just know exactly what's going on. There's a little video with me looking even beardier than I am now and hairier, talking about the Electromaker of the Month just there. Here on the Electromaker Show, we've been talking about Nordic Semiconductor's collection of Bluetooth Low Energy and more recently Wi-Fi enabled chips and development boards, along with their power profiling tools and their power management IC for quite some time, which is why I'm so happy to say that Nordic Semiconductor are sponsoring this episode of the Electromaker Show. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you're probably quite familiar with their range and what they do, but just on the off chance that you are not, then I suggest checking out the Nordic Semiconductor featured section on the Electromaker website. Here you can link to all of Nordic's different socials and of course their website, but you can also find all of the projects that have been posted to our project hub using Nordic gear, including the frankly incredible guitar active pickguard from Eli Hughes. You'll be hearing a little bit more about that from us soon, which of course uses Nordic's new NRF 7002 EK, which is their first step into Wi-Fi. This is an incredibly capable Wi-Fi 6 IC that can give you very high bandwidth with very low power draw, and there's a number of other advantages to it as well. It's also worth checking out the blogs section of the Nordic Semiconductor featured platform, because here we have all of the blog posts that we've put together about their hardware, but also all of the interviews we've done with Nordic staff at different conferences over the years. These demonstrations are always really, really well put together, really well explained, and they give you a great idea as to what all of this Nordic gear can do. Each piece of Nordic hardware comes with a dedicated development kit. So in the case of the NRF 7002 Wi-Fi kit, you get a development board which has an NRF 5340 Bluetooth Low Energy chip on it as the host controller. But in the case of the NRF 7002, you can also get it as an Arduino compatible header, as you're seeing here. There's also an expansion board that will fit into their Thingy 52 prototyping kit. In terms of software, Nordic provide the NRF Connect SDK, which in turn is based on the Zephyr RTOS. Now, Zephyr gives you a huge amount of configurability and compatibility between various different pieces of hardware, but what the NRF Connect SDK brings is a huge amount of code samples and some really useful plugins for Visual Studio Code, allowing you to visually configure things for your board, taking some of the complexity away from Zephyr, which is a common complaint. If you would like to find out more, you can head to nordicsemi.com to find Nordic's official website. And as I previously mentioned, at the top of the featured platform on the Electromaker website, you can find links to all of these things as well. And if you're interested in getting started with Nordic product lines today, we have all of their products in the Electromaker online store, including the development kits, which, as I've previously mentioned, are a great way to evaluate everything that a piece of hardware can do, but also Nordic's prototyping kits, including the Thingy 52, which is an all-in-one Bluetooth Low Energy box, which, as you can see if you look at the interviews on our featured platform, is ready to do Edge AI pretty much out of the box, and it's very easy to get started with. Also, the Nordic Thingy 93, which is their cellular IoT prototyping kit, is a real favorite here, and they're just about to release the Nordic Thingy 93X, which brings Wi-Fi 6 to the game and a bunch of other features as well. So, if you would like to find out more, head to the links in the description of this video or the description on the screen right now. Thank you so much, Nordic, for sponsoring this video. Now, recently we talked to the MBeetle IDE folks at Embedded World, and we talked about their IDE a few times. It is just a really nice idea. It's an all-in-one IDE for working with microcontrollers, but the thing that really attracted us to it and attracted Robin to it, he's made a full video about this on the YouTube channel about working with RISC V microcontrollers using the MBeetle IDE and how it does all of the configuration for you and all of the grabbing of the libraries. You don't really have to do much setup at all. Now, while we were at Embedded World, they showed us something really quite exciting, and that is this. This is the Tiny Scarab development board, and it's in a really nice hard case. It's in fact probably one of the nicest hard cases for a development board I've ever had, which doesn't mean anything, I know, it's just a case, but I don't know, it's a really nice touch. But this has all of the broken out pins of the development boards that you would imagine, and in fact, if I hold up this, which is probably slightly more recognizable to those of you who've been following the CH32 V003, which is the 8-cent microcontroller that you can see in the middle of here, or 10 cents or something. I think I got this whole kit for $5 plus shipping, which is wild. But it has a programmer and it has the board itself. This incorporates both into one. And in fact, if I jump back over to here now, you can see they have an image which shows you that quite nicely. Now, there's a bunch of links here, all of which will be linked under the video. I'm going to go through it very quickly because we have not one but two development boards to talk about. However, before we move on from the Tiny Scarab, let's just look at this. So as you can see, it is in some ways a bare bones development board, but I don't mean that as any kind of slight. It has everything that you will need. It has all of the pins broken out. It has a user LED. You can switch between 3.3 volt and 5 volt mode because that's one of the wonderful things about this board. It is, it can run from anything down to 1.9 volts. Right up to 5 volts, and is tolerant to that on its pins as well, which is kind of amazing. And this is the GitHub page for the board. It is not available yet in theory, but you can get your hands on one of these quite soon, and you can do that by joining the DevHeads IoT Integration Discord server. Now, I will leave a link to this in the description as well. I'm on that server, and the only reason I know this is because I went on the server just to see what people were talking about it, and just asked a couple of questions. Hey, when will this be available? And I'm going to specifically quote the thing in the Tiny channel now. They're gearing up for a second production run, but not sure when that will commence, because this is from the first production run. But they know that they have dozens more at least. They have about, so there's at least 42 of them which are around. And they're going to start giveaways for these kits for active server participants on the DevHeads Discord server. So that's a way that you can get a hold of one of these for free. I am a new member of the Discord server. I've only posted once, but it seems like a really interesting place with a lot of interesting folks working on a lot of interesting things. And I've just remembered that there's a streamer mode for Discord, so I can safely actually show you it. So yes, this is the DevHeads server. This is the Tiny Scarab part. This is super cool, by the way. This is someone who is putting together a task-based system on the CH32 V003 in Rust. And I've talked about how exciting I find Rust on embedded controllers as well. And there's a bunch of different stuff. It's not just about this board and these kind of things. This is a general hangout for all kinds of devs and programmers and hardware hackers. It's just a really interesting place to be. So yes, I'll leave a link to that one in the description. But we are not done yet. There is another CH32 V003 development board I want to quickly show you. This is from Kapuff Embedded, a company out of India, and they will be selling this on the MakerPals Tindy page, along with a couple of others. But yeah, look at this beauty. I really like this. This is kind of a step, not a step beyond. This is a different kind of development board because this incorporates a few things. You have a microphone on there, a vibration motor on there, you have an OLED screen on there, and a bunch of different ways of working with the MCU, but fundamentally you still have this really cheap little WCH microcontroller. And it's, again, once again, it is USB Type-C and it incorporates the programmer as well. What we don't know yet is anything to do with price. But if you would like to find out more about it, you can look at the link in the description to this site. It tells you everything that it has here. It also has a couple of videos and it has the documentation of it too. There's some example code for it and there's also places where it will be available. And currently it is not on the MakerPals page, but they mentioned sometime mid-May, I think, which is kind of where we are now. So this is an imminent thing. Mid-May, this will be coming out, and it's one of the first, I may be mistaken, but it feels like one of the first bigger development boards using this technology, the RISC V CH32 V003 chip, that incorporates a few nice development things for working on the board as well. So that's two options for working with RISC V, and of course there's nothing wrong with this. This isn't going anywhere either. These incredibly cheap development boards are still available widely on AliExpress and Amazon, although I think they cost a little bit more now. And if you want to get started with them, I highly recommend the MBeatle IDE for that because it makes it very, very simple. I also recommend taking a look at Charles Law's CH32 V003 Fun, which is his own SDK, which has no hardware abstraction layer, or at least much less of one, which is a different approach for it. But both are equally good, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what people make with them. The fact that we have an open instruction set, really community-based microcontroller, one that you can program via USB directly, by the way, thanks once again to Charles Law. If you get a custom PCB made, you don't even need a programmer for it these days. It's just a really, really exciting time. I recorded a short video about this just now, and I ended it by saying it reminds me of the early days of Arduino. And even though I didn't really know what I was doing then, the fact that this incredibly dense and difficult to understand technology was just cheap, available, and programmable by all felt really exciting. And I kind of have that feeling again about RISC V. Maybe that's just me. I'd be very interested to hear what you think. Now, we're going to move on to an FPV drone, and in case you're not familiar with that terminology, it's basically first-person view. This is a drone that allows you to fly and actually see through the drone's eyes, so to speak, as you're flying. There's a whole sport attached to it, and it's really interesting. And you can get an FPV drone for not that much these days, actually. They're cheaper than they ever have been. But what if you wanted to go even cheaper than that? And crucially, what if you wanted to do it in a very DIY way? Well, on the Hackaday blog, I noticed this article by Lewin Day about a project from Max Imagination, which is this tiny little Arduino-powered first-person view drone. And the thing I love the most about it, in a weird way, is the fact that the chassis of this drone is made from lollipop sticks. Yes, you can make a 3D printed version of it if you want, but this really is the fully DIY article, as it were. And if you head over to the Instructables page from where it came from, there is an absolute wealth of details. So, first things first, there is, of course, a video, and I advise you going and watching that because that gives a better rundown than I'm going to in this short section. But in short, if I make myself slightly smaller, this is the things that you need in order to make a fully working first-person view drone. There's a camera module here, an Arduino Micro, and an NRF, I always forget the designation, it's NRF24, yes, NRF24L01 transceiver, which is a long-time user, had a lot of long-time use for remote control projects on Arduino because of its simplicity. And there's a few things I want to just draw attention to. The first is this wonderful chassis, as I've mentioned here already. The simplicity of it all as well. This circuit diagram, while a little bit difficult to understand at first, shows that this all works without any real crazy breakouts of things. There's no shift registering here. There's no multiplexing going on here of any kind. It all just works through your single development board as well. But the thing I like about this project the most is the troubleshooting section. While we're on our way there, let's just quickly note a couple of things. It's based on the multi-Wii code base, which is Arduino IDE compatible code for quadrocopters. And you see down here the joystick that they made as well, which is just, a lovely 3D printed case. It looks nice to hold and chunky. Not important, but yeah, it pleases me. And connecting to the, that's the multi-Wii configurator. Yes, and there's the FPV headset. Now, of course, you'll need an FPV headset in order to attach it to. This would be a little bit out of scope to build the drone and the remote control and a completely custom FPV headset, but there is, you can connect it to them. You're not going to be getting 4K out of it, but then would you expect to from something so little and so cute and, crucially, cheap? But here is the part that I really appreciate about this Instructables. This is the troubleshooting tips and key takeaways section. And if I actually scoop ahead a little bit, there's some really nice key takeaways, which is just good advice in general. There's some troubleshooting tips, which are good tips for troubleshooting. But then here's the troubleshooting that worked. Here's the troubleshooting that didn't. And I wish more people would put this in their write-ups because it really is a wonderful thing to kind of put perspective into what you should be looking into for potential problems. If someone has said, hey, I thought this was a problem, but I looked into it and it actually wasn't, maybe you could put your efforts into something else at first. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't necessarily have the problem that they didn't have. But yeah, I just really appreciate it when people put this much detail into their write-ups. Good documentation is something that I've talked about over and over again here at Electromaker. It is the basis of our monthly cash prize competition that we have as well. And yeah, this is just a really lovely project for its documentation alone, but of course, because of this wonderful final product. And of course, I couldn't leave this without giving you a little flight test of it. And look, there's the FPV goggles. There goes the drone flying around. And it's droning as far as I can tell. And yeah, I love this. I love the kind of... It's just because of the quality of the camera, and of course you're not expecting anything more than that. But it's almost like they've made it have a filter on it to make it look like something out of a future sci-fi film back when that's the way that you made the way a robot looked. You know, the way a Terminator looked, everything was slightly noisy and there was, little artifacts on the screen. It's just a wonderful project. And I would highly recommend going to see the Max Imagination YouTube channel. It is new to me, but obviously not new to many people as they have 114,000 subscribers already. But it's just a wonderful project. Now, while we were off the air, Microchip had their Design Week 2024, and there's a little video just here that you can watch to give a rough overview of it. Now, there was a number of different things. The one thing I'm going to talk about here is the Maker Zone live stream they did on May 1st. It's something that I wish I could have talked about in the moment, but yeah, as you can probably hear from my voice, I'm still not quite speaking fully normally yet. But that particular live stream is absolutely worth watching. Yeah, let's just jump over it to right now. So there's a couple of different projects in this, but I want to focus on the first project they talk about, which is a tank battle game. And this is an engineer who has taken the idea of having a little tank that can be controlled via Bluetooth Low Energy and putting it together in a way that is solid, very easy to replicate, works very well, and can work in an arena setting, which is exactly what happened. It was taken to the Maker Fair. I can't remember where, one of the Maker Fairs in the States. And yeah, it's tank battle. It has an IR blaster, it has various different things, and it works, as you can see here, with a NES controller. And you have Microchip development boards and Bluetooth Low Energy boards at both ends of this. So you have one on the tank, which I think was the Curiosity Nano, which was used. And of course, it's Microchip, and the nice thing about that is you can use the Arduino IDE with this if you want to. It's definitely one of the easier ones to get into. And yeah, if you'd like to find out more about it, there's a full hour live stream on this, but the first half or so, the first 30 minutes, is the part that you want to look for. And I'm trying to remember the name of the engineer. In my head, for some reason, I have him as Maker Wizard. Oh yeah, Bob Martin, the Wizard of Make, is the one who is behind this tank battle thing. The first 30 minutes of this is fascinating because it is very accessible, as I've previously mentioned, because you can work it with the Arduino IDE. All of the parts you used are freely available and quite cheap to get. But yeah, Bob is clearly a very talented engineer. He even gets down into the nitty-gritty of the bare metal PWM code in order to make it work nicer, in order to not make it scream so much when it's using the motors. There's a lot of real good detail in here, and even in the time that I spent just kind of looking through this, working out the angle I wanted to talk about it, as always, I learned something new, and that's the main thing we're here for, isn't it? So there'll be links to this site and the live stream in the description of this video. And as I've said, if you want just a general recap of what happens here, and they have just a very quick edit going through various parts. And there's a few other parts that I saw and immediately wanted to kind of earmark to look at the other parts of the design week there too. But there's one other thing I would like to give a little shout out to before moving on, because it was mentioned in the live stream video. And that is that Microchip have on their Microchip Developer Help YouTube page an introduction to bare metal programming with the ATtiny 1627. This is a full course on bare metal programming, and I've had a little skim through it first. And as you know, if you've been watching the show recently, I've fallen down a bit of a rabbit hole of AVR and more recently RISC V development, because yeah, the CH32 V003 and the Atmega 328P are both, for different reasons, very compelling microcontrollers. One of them's been around and with us forever, the other one's quite new, but learning how the assembly works and all that kind of stuff is something that's very much appealing to me at the minute. And if you have an Arduino lying around, if you have one of these, you have everything you need to start working with AVR assembly. Of course, this one is aimed more at a different microcontroller, but it's all very similar. AVR assembly is AVR assembly. That was our podcast for this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all of the support that you continue showing. If you want to reach out to us, our Discord server is the best place to do so. You'll find a link to that in the show notes. You can also email me at ian@electromaker.io. I'd love to hear what you think of anything in the show. If there's anything you'd like to hear more of as well, please do let me know. And of course, if you head to electromaker.io/shop, that is the best way you can support us. And we have a massive stock of pretty much anything you want right now, including the very coveted Raspberry Pi 5, which is suddenly not unobtainium anymore, which is very nice. Anyway, I hope you have a fun, safe, and creative week, and I look forward to talking to you soon.